I think some of you who are watching probably remember a daily drama on television called As the World Turns. Well, Sam Kephart, the world continues to turn. And there's a term that's been floating around our studios this morning called Global Fluency.
Correct.
I'll bet it would be intriguing for our listeners to hear a little conversation. You have some insight into global fluency.
Yes, actually I do. The Brookings Institute, it's a think tank in Washington, was retained by the Obama administration a couple years ago to look at what are the promising segments of the U.S. economy, and the main one actually is exports. We export jobs when we make something here, whether it's food or ag or high tech, and we send it overseas.
Well, in South Dakota, we've been exporting jobs for decades.
Anyhow,
and children.
Yeah, it's a really strong market, and the interesting thing is the one consistent segment of economic growth, strong growth, since the stock market collapse of 2008 is exporting, and in general, the net positive high-end middle-class jobs that's created is over 600,000. So that really is a bright spot. In any event, so the Obama administration retained Brookings, and I think Citibank and some others are Rockefeller Foundation, whatever, trying to help this agenda. But they're studying this thing, and they've picked a few cities to work with, San Diego being one of them, to encourage exports. But the lesson out of it is that there are 10 key traits of global fluency, and it has nothing to do with your population base, because people might say, well, we live in Little Chamberlain, South Dakota, or I live here. It has nothing to do with that.
Do people have to buy your book to hear what the 10...
Oh, yes. For only $5.95 at the end of the show.
Share with us what some of those, what's on that top 10 list, if you will.
Well, the biggest one is a mindset, and that is to realize that even though we live in a predominantly agrarian economy still here in South Dakota, and even though we have a relatively small, thinly spaced population base, it's the mindset of realizing that we are global citizens. It's kind of like all this technological stuff with both the internet and now air travel. I mean, even from Rapid City or Sioux Falls, you can pretty much be anywhere in the world within 2 or 3 flights.
Yeah.
You go to Denver, you can go to almost anywhere in the world. You go to Chicago, you certainly can go anywhere in the world. You go to Minneapolis, you can go anywhere in the world, for real. And that American businesses typically don't think of themselves as global producers because, well, I've got a good thing going right here. And I was on a flight a couple of weeks ago, and there's a gentleman next to me. He has a company back. I'm not going to say who it is, but he has a company back in the Sioux Falls area, and he does environmental remediation. Well, I have someone in India that has a lake that is dying, that his technology would be part of the solution. I'm trying to talk to him about doing that. And he says, I don't want to sell overseas.
So basically what you're saying is if you're in business today in America, it might be a good time to be preparing to become more involved in the global market.
Exactly.
Because that market is growing.
Exactly. I mean, even here, anything, whether it's a food stuff, used clothing, used cars, software, for many of those items, both goods and services, there's a really strong international market for it. And there's resources. The government, there's a lot of free resources or almost free resources to pursue that. But you have to take on that mindset, and you really have to view yourself first as a global citizen. And most Americans, even though we're a big country, we're still inward looking.
So if someone in Minneapolis has some sort of a manufacturing business, they might export to several surrounding states. But if they really wanted to seize the moment, they'd be preparing to market internationally.
Well, yes, and a few weeks ago, I think I told you this, I met with the Iraq ambassador to the United States. They're rebuilding their country. They need, for instance, 2 million housing units right now. They want some American contractors to come over and help them punch those units out. They need 4 hospitals. They need a couple universities. They need water infrastructure, things like that. And they want to spend the money here.
And the pay for those kind of jobs, you'd have to relocate just a few miles, but that's impressive.
It's very high. Very, very good pay.
Is there more job opportunity than there are people willing to fill those spots
right
at this
now.
moment?
Yes, hungry for it.
If you want to go to Iran, this might
Or
be
Iraq.
Iraq. Yeah, it might
Different
be,
place.
might be a good time to get your ticket.